Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition, and we are now at poem 232, The Sun Just Touched the Morning. And of course you can hear the resonances right away of Homer's Iliad, rosy-fingered dawn. I think, as I said in a number of earlier lectures, I think Emily is constantly dancing with the older classic texts and authors, especially, of course, Homer. Now, in some ways, this is a very important poem for us because it will be Emily's treatment of the passage of time, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that. And in fact, we'll find ourselves playing around with the opening lines of Burnt Norton here in a few minutes, T.S. Eliot's classic. Now, think about the idea of the passage of time as it relates to earlier titles that we've already read. Our assumption is that you've been following our stuff, ablerandstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. The hope as well is that you've already worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the previous 231 poems we just finished with God Permits Industrious Angels. Now, technically this is a poem about the passing of day, no doubt, but many have argued that maybe it's back to poem 125 with the passing of ecstatic experiences quickly. It might be setting us up for the study of poem 637, a child growing up in the way in which that happens quickly. And of course, it's about cycles, and so let's pay attention to that as we read, and no question, we're going to find ourselves excited about reading this poem out loud. It just reads really beautifully out loud. The sun just touched the morning, happy thing. Suppose that he had come to dwell, and life would all be spring. She felt herself supremer, a raised, ethereal thing. Henceforth for her, what holiday? Meanwhile, her wheeling king trailed slow along the orchards, his haughty spangled hems, leaving a new necessity, the want of diadems. The morning fluttered, staggered, felt feebly for her crown, her unanointed forehead, henceforth, her only one. Now there is a bit of course, almost like humor here at the conclusion that things don't turn out the way it was expected, a bit of irony maybe along the way. Notice, we'll begin with the sun just touched the morning. I love the description of the sunrise, right? And of course this touching. The morning happy thing, in other words, to feel privileged in some way. Suppose that he had come to dwell and life would all be spring, this idea of the longing for longevity, we might say. And some have read this as a theodicy. Why must there be pain and suffering in the world? Why can't it be spring all the time? She felt herself, notice we go from touch to feeling, she felt herself supremer. This is, almost like a religious experience, the raising of the dead, if you will. A raised, ethereal thing. Now, I think ethereal is the key word here. And it is the first time that it gets used in 8 different poems it's going to happen. It is an important one. When we get to poem 315, she'll play the game this way. He fumbles at your soul as players at the keys before they drop full music on. He stuns you by degrees. Perhaps your brittle nature for the ethereal blow by fainter hammers further heard, then nearer, then so slow. Your breath has time to straighten, your breath to bubble cool, deals one imperial thunderbolt that scalps your naked soul. When winds take forest in their paws, the universe is still. And the fact that the word still is the last word of this poem will be significant. Of course, our study of T.S. Eliot and especially Burnt Norton we've already commented on. And we will at the end of this lecture as well. Henceforth, for her, what holiday? Notice the exclamation point. Do you see all these italics words here? What holiday? Meanwhile, in other words, this is the perception, but what's happening? Well, obviously the morning is turning into noon, which will soon turn into night, right? Meanwhile, her wheeling king, of course the sun, trailed slow along the orchards, his haughty spangled hems leaving a new necessity, in other words, the change, the passage of time, right? The want of diadems, and of course we're gonna meet crown here in a second. The morning fluttered, staggered, the word pictures here are compelling, felt feebly for her crown. In other words, wait, what happened? How did this happen? Her unanointed forehead, henceforth, her only one. In other words, the passing of time. What is it that we'll say? Nothing lasts. We're back, of course, to Heraclitus. You can never step into the same river twice. What at 2a are we saying here? Well, I think the argument that she's making is often the most important stuff in life doesn't last for very long. It passes, kind of like a beautiful morning will pass. At 2B, I love the word choice. I love that we go from happy to staggered. I love her keyword of ethereal. At 3A, well, Shelley's defense of poetry comes to mind, the source of inspiration for sure. We mentioned poem 125, which we've already studied, or poem 637. I would take you to both of those to feel that we're playing a very similar kind of game. I love these opening lines of Bert Norton, time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in time past. If all time is eternally present, all time is unredeemable. What might have been is an abstraction, remaining a perpetual possibility only in a world of speculation. What might have been and what has been point to one end, which is always present. Footfalls echo in the memory, down the passage which we did not take, towards the door we never opened, into the rose garden. My words echo thus in your mind. We've given full lectures on these lines at learnstrong.net, and I do find this compelling way to read this as well, the passage of time. Finally, at 3B, to own a poem like this. How do you read this poem? Do you read this poem as symbolism? Do you read this poem as kind of depressing? All good things have to come to an end. And to what degree do you enjoy watching the morning turn into the noon and finally turning into the evening? Thank you.